Welcome to the Tippy Top Entrepreneur Experience. A big welcome to Prateek Sanjay, founder of Foundraisr and LinkedIn influencer. Thanks again for giving us some of your valuable time.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolute pleasure. Now, Prateek and I met fairly recently on LinkedIn after I saw one of your founder-focused viral posts on LinkedIn. And since then, I've been a big follower of all of Prateek's content, and I can confidently assert that no one else, at least that I know, on LinkedIn provides as much high-quality free advice than Prateek. And I'm sure, Prateek, that your 19K plus followers agree. Could you please tell us a little bit more about you and your journey about how you got here?
Okay, so my biggest specialty is making other people understood in a way that is relevant to people other than them. And that has always been my job. Uh, I did this as a wealth management intern in UBS in New York, where I had to make sure that the advisor's concerns were understood, communicated correctly to the clients in the right kind of language and tone. I did this when I was in my first job working in the M&A team of a 4 billion euro, now it must be more, telecom company, where the corporate development team, which scouted for new acquisition projects, financing projects, they could explain to the board of directors in a few bullet points why they should care about those projects. When I was working in a startup fundraising consultancy, it was my first experience converting the founder's notes into a communicable message for new shareholders and investors. And same approach was there when I was a freelancer after Spain from India, working on copywriting and sales research for multiple businesses. I came to Norway after one of my freelancing clients hired me full time, and my big job was to convert everything from deep tech language to English for prospective investors and existing ones. It was also what I did as a EU grant writing specialist for 2 years, when again, same process, talk to a scientist or engineer, put that in normal words that government people can understand. It would come back to being my main role when I was working as an app development agency salesperson, and I had to figure out what the business idea actually was, that a technical team could build an actual product around it and not just have some vague ideas, putting that in a bullet point form. And then those people asked me, can you're good with messaging, can you help write some short cold emails to investors for us and find them so that we can actually get some meetings? I didn't think this would be an actual relevant service, but they pushed me into it and paid me for it until I discovered this is what people wanted. So that's what I'm doing now.
That's product market fit if I've ever seen it, right?
Yeah, before you even started a business, product market fit came to you. Isn't that ideal? Like most of us are not that lucky. The rest, many times we are just like a hammer looking
Mm,
for a nail that really
mm,
fits the nail. But what if there's no nails needed? You
mm.
know?
Oh, excellent. Great. Okay, three main topics for today. So, of course, research and finding customer or investor names, whichever one you're in the market for. Number two, I can't think of anyone better for this one. Drafting amazing copy. Learn from the best, Prateek Sanjay. Now,
Yeah.
number three, document access and navigation. Not one we've covered before, but very intriguing. And basically stop repeating the same thing every single meeting. Prateek's going to tell you more later. So let's crack on with number one, researching and finding customer or investor names. Now, you specialize in this, Prateek, and I've seen one of your LinkedIn posts where you have a very good formula for researching prospects and then generating those emails. Do you want to just share how you go about doing that?
Okay. So when I was an app development agency salesperson, I used the usual wrong approach to get sales meetings that everybody does, which is to blindly add people to the particular job title on LinkedIn. Why does that fail? because the majority of the people that you end up having meetings with, and you'll get like blindly LinkedIn spamming does get you a lot of meetings, but those people will reveal after 2 or 3 meetings that they never had the ability or the intention to pay. And then afterwards, when they do have some ability and intention to pay, you'll discover they had no urgency. So they will just drag you on for months. So I began investigating ways to prevent that from happening. What I realized was you need to have a process to determine what is the financial stability of each customer you approach before you even approach them, and what's the best way to do it. If you're an app development agency, it is critical to reach out to people who had at least a small exit before. That way, they're likely to be successful customers. And that way, they can also have enough cash to help buy your agency services. Because a lot of people who just have a 6-figure salary before they start an agency, they're uncomfortable about spending $200,000 without knowing what the results will be with the agency. Uh, so and then the similar thing happens when you are approaching investors. The first, if you just download an investor list from one of those investor search engines, the first thing that you find is those people say, I've now been investing for 2 or 3 years now. Or they will say, yeah, I am investing, but small checks of 5 to 15K, which is the majority of angel investors. They write very small checks. So what, again, you need to have a process for seeing who recently invested a certain amount of cash in a big enough round, so that you can be confident that their size is about 100K plus. Now, what I did, my process was simple. For customers, if you want to see willingness and ability to pay, you check the funding rounds via Google Alerts, or you open the recent funding rounds on Crunchbase. There is another step. You need to actually open each of the news pieces about the funding rounds and check what are they spending the fundraising on. If they are only fundraising for expanding their sales team, you might not be the relevant person for selling development services to them. If they are doing this to expand development by scaling up some infrastructure like AWS costs and so on, then it might not make sense to approach them for recruiting and so on. Similarly, if you're talking to angel investors, don't just check don't just check the fact that they funded a company. Try to look at their Twitter or their social media and talk about what are their convictions are making them invest in this. The problem is that doing these 2 checks is a bit harder and it requires an extra amount of manual effort. And because I made this mistake early with Foundraisr. What I was doing was I was writing to people and saying, I'm reaching out because I noticed that you're invested in this company. That's very interesting. That worked up to a certain point until basically around the time that I was doing it, everybody else coincidentally also started doing it. And now that's not really a strong converting reason to get an investor's attention. So that's the first step for filtering customers and investors. And then when you write the email copy, the personalization that you write in the first line cannot just be about the fact that, oh, you just recently fundraised, or like you recently got this invested in this company. You also need to make sure that the personalization is relevant in a way to what you're offering and specify that in the first 2 lines. An example would be, you raised 10 million for your no code solution, and we see now that you said you're going to be expanding your team. Would you be open to a recruiting solution that filters out candidates who talk very good game but do not deliver? That's an example. I got that from the inimitable Josh Braun, that example. It's a solid one.
That's great. I was just thinking in terms of an analogy. Often people say, when approaching investors, should you use a shotgun or a rifle? And I think you've clarified it's not only a rifle, but it's a really high-powered, high-caliber rifle with a big scope on it that can, I think I heard a sniper rifle can shoot up to 8 miles, not necessarily accurately, but that's the kind of caliber that they can shoot from about 2 miles with accuracy in the military now. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. Really go deep dive. And sitting on the investor side of the table, I fully agree with it. I get a lot of cold inbounds that are just completely irrelevant, and it just it just why waste your time as an entrepreneur, because they're not going to get answered, they don't land, they just yeah, they do the
To be
opposite.
a winning salesperson or a founder, you can't just be a sniper. You gotta be a sniper in Stalingrad or St. Petersburg. Stacking up anywhere between 100 and 900 kills and become a hero of the Soviet Union, because you're not just finding lots of high quality targets to hit, but you're also intelligently finding a way to hit a large volume of them. Now,
Mm,
going both deep and broad,
mm,
that's easier said than done, but like
mm,
that's how you build up your skills. First you do it, you do this at a small scale, and once you're confident enough, start doing it at a bit more volume. But
mm,
yeah, on one hand, a deep personalization is needed, but so is a lot of volume, and that's what enterprise SDRs do.
mm. And as you say, it's a skill, builds up. It's like a probably like a muscle that you develop over time, and you have to go down those routes that
Right.
don't work to get to your level of awakeness in terms of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, just to go down on the sniper analogy, what is the best way to like do a deep dive on each of the targets? You have to be in a place where all your targets are present. So if you look at the famous Finnish sniper who fought Simo Heha, who fought the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union's invasion of Finland, that guy dug himself under 9 feet of snow in the forest where most Finnish Russian soldiers were crossing. And then that helped him kill over 1,000 Russians. So yeah, like I guess the Finns and Soviets really learned a lot from each other in that war. But anyway, not digressing. Uh, it is about getting your scopes deep into a target, but also having a place where enough targets are hitting. Now, it's really hard for you to be in a business niche where there's just not enough leads. That's a high traffic thing that we're
Mm,
talking about.
mm,
So if you are building a, a special industrial IoT Industry 4.0 solution that's mainly only purchasable by automobile companies, okay, there's only so many automobile companies who can focus on Industry 4.0 solutions who are going to buy that technology. And there's only so many angels in that. So whenever people approach me for these very niche areas, I have to tell them that I'm sure there are angels in this space, but just not enough for you to justify hiring me. But like, I just give them a list for free. Here's all the angels who invested in the space. So just talk to these 10, 15 people in all of Europe who are actually relevant right now. So, but that's something I've been wondering about. Why do some people choose to be in a market where there's only going to be max 20 big customers on the planet whoever might ever buy it? Sometimes it succeeds, and that never say never, but that's my first thought.
yeah, no, fair enough. Good question. I don't know the answer, but I've seen it. It's very difficult, and as you say, if you don't get luck the first time, what do you do? And that actually brings me on to my next question in terms of first impressions, particularly if you've only got a short list of 20 potential customers. How
Mhm.
important is that first impression? If you don't create a good first impression, and is that lead completely dead? Can you reignite it? How long does it take to reignite? Can you come back in 2 years, say, look, our messaging was a bit off, our product wasn't quite there, but we're here?
So yeah, I have some thoughts about that. Um, there is a Brazilian fintech company that I've been working with, and the founder was very clear from the start that he didn't want to approach every angel on the planet because he already had enough money invested in the business. He just wanted people who are operators who can add value as advisors in the company while also putting money into the company to put their money where their mouth was. So that limited the total pool of people we could approach to a very narrow sample size. So, I suggested to him that like, if we are doing this, we need a lot more credibility in the business. So he's reached out to me in January, and he said, yeah, let me just reach out to you again in around March. and he did so. So he reaches out to me again in March, and he says, okay, now I have a bit more traction, and now I have a serious investment round of 1 million, and have these existing advisors and have these existing quality names on a cap table and a list of customers. This now we can actually show to people who we are and get their attention. So when we went out to we've only emailed so far 100 people or 100 to 200 people in that list. And we we had a small chance each of them. Luckily, 4 people wanted to invest before the round even started. After the summer, we were just reaching out to them before the round started. And the other 10 people said, yeah, we want to be in the loop for when it's actually open. So what were the winning reasons? The fact that he had global founders capital in the cap table, the fact that he had 20 solid merchants from Brazil on the cap table. And now, and it's good that he was postponing the funding round and doing an outreach before the fundraise, because he bought himself the time to apply to Y Combinator, and he got in. So now he can go back to everybody else and say, hey, by the way, an update. I'm on Y Combinator now. Let me know if it's still relevant for you. So this is what you do when you have only a few quality prospects, either customers or investors. Do not reach out to them like when you're actively looking for a sale or investment. Just reach out to them early and say, should I get back to you when the time is right? So this way you can make so much more progress with your product, so much more progress with the company, and get more credibility when you talk back to them. And you also start up this whole early sales or fundraising outreach after you build up some credibility among initial customers. That's the process.
And if you didn't do that, if you just went out to them first time and you got a hard no, can you come back from that?
That's the point. Like there is one American fintech I'm working with, and they needed to raise funds ASAP, like before the summer. So they're like a combination of Instagram and Morningstar for investments. And unfortunately, because they reached out right at the development stage, people thought that they were being kind of amateurish for reaching out for funding so early, that they got some really no thanks, not interested, never will be kind of responses. Because whereas the other guy who was reaching out before the funding round was open, people said, you know what, I can be open to this and continue seeing your progress and seeing how it goes. Because when you are reaching out too early, when you're expecting to close things early, that is when you send a negative signal. So if you are a pre-product market fit startup, you could just be approaching potential customers, and just tell them, I'm not expecting to close things now, but we're just asking if we can, if you want to ever reach out to us when the time is right. And that shows that you're not desperate. And same with investors, just want to check if we should reach out when the time is right. So it was just more like an early introductory email. That kind of cold email works better. But if you ever make a sales pitch on the first message, or investor pitch on the first message, that is signaling, I need money now. And that causes people to give you a more of a hell yes or hell no.
And usually towards the latter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're the VC, and like if somebody mailed you and said, we need money in 4 weeks, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, they said there's a very fine line between distressed and actual venture capital, and that falls into that distressed, as opposed to that. They spoke to me 18 months ago. It makes sense. And by the time your VC money actually lands, it might only be 4 weeks to cash out, but it's what's happened before that point as to, as opposed to them approaching you with 4 weeks to live.
That's exactly it. Venture capital and angel investing is not distressed capital. Distressed capital is something that a few family offices play in because they realize that they can acquire a company for a large stake and buy it cheap because it has some potential. So that's more of a family office play, and they are gonna behave a bit like vultures because that's what you're inviting them to be.
Absolutely.
So, but if you don't want to be in a distressed fundraising situation, well, try to start your preparation 6 to 9 months early. Like
Yeah.
do like about 9 months, because you start doing a pre-fundraising outreach for 3 to 6 months before, and then close the funding round 3 to 6 months before. So
Mm.
the actual closing date, and that's advice that nearly everybody gives in the
But
fundraising space.
not
Like,
many follow.
yeah, because like if you
Mm.
see the robot mascot event, every single advisor said just try to build a contact list of people early so that when the round is open, you already have enough newly warmed up connections to talk to. What you cannot do is try to like convert people on the spot. Like the round
Mm.
is now and you need to invest now. It just does not work.
Mm.
But I think that's the majority of the founders. And if you look at crowdfunding sites are full of people who desperately need money now.
Mm.
And I don't, and like how many of these people make it? And if they do make it, what do they get? 100, 200K? No, it doesn't really help, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And as you say, in terms of those vulture investors, like to put it in context, they take 60% of the equity, not 20, 25. So, be careful what you're getting yourself in for. And that's why we always counsel entrepreneurs say, look, raise enough for an 18-month runway, and they look at you a bit funny. And in this market, everyone's saying, even Y Combinator wrote to their founders saying maybe you should raise for a 24-month runway. And if you look at it by the figures you gave, it takes 9 months, but you want to run the business for a good 12 months before you put your fundraising hat back on. So 9 plus 12, it's somewhere between
Wow.
18 and 24 months.
And then you realize that you have to think about all your cash needs on a 3 year span before they happen, right? Like that's not going to happen to anyone who's running the business for the first time. I made those mistakes as a finance manager of a startup, and with me and the founder, we really thought it was just something that we could waltz into, but then we never got into the position either of doing things with previous separation, because there was never enough time for it. We were always so buried in current tasks that we just put off these things like fundraising to the last moment. And it was always we made that same mistake 3 or 4 times, which is always starting a fundraising round too late, going to a crowdfunding website and saying it's now live and close in 4 weeks. It never works. It will never work. And I'm trying to caution people about the mistakes we made.
Mm. And to this day, not just you, number one reason for startup failure is fails to raise the follow-on round / runs out of cash. Same sort of thing, right? In VC, because you're usually in negative cash burn territory. But you think that's actually a symptom. The cause is you didn't create that contact list, 12, 18 months before. That's really good that you
Exactly.
did that. Mm.
Yeah, you need to create that contact list 12, 18 months before. And
Mm.
because, and you need to spend 6 to 12 months building up enough traction. And then, so simultaneously, okay, so month zero, company starts.
Mm.
6 months in, you got the first basic product and first paying users. Okay. That from month 6 to 9 or 6 to 12, you start building the contact list. And then from months 9 or 12 onwards, you open a funding round for 3 to 4 months, and then you get the funding. And so before that, when you start the business, you need to have enough cash for the first 18 months already in place. And if you plan to be a venture backed startup, that means a lot of money from the founder. Let's just say that if you're hiring 2 full-time developers in a pre-seed stage and the founder is also a coder, okay, so 2 full-time developers, let's say they have a cost to the company of £9,000. That's an £18,000 burn rate. That's normal for pre-seed. And then you multiply £18,000 with 18 months. That's already £324,000. Founders invest normally 100,000 to 200,000 pounds, expecting to be a venture-backed business. If you plan to be a lifestyle business, then even £5,000 is okay. Then and I respect the bootstrappers who just start with nothing and take it all away. But then those people probably were not intended to be a venture-backed business or that big.
Mm.
But this is why people should really get, if you plan to be a venture backed founder, understand it's going to be immense costs to your own bank balance. Like you'd probably be like, if either you're a very well-earning 30-year-old or like you're a seasoned 45-year-old with a good career that you and money saved up. And then you realize, okay, before I can even get seed or series A, I need to get about 300, I need to put 300 or 400 pounds of my own money, building a product, validating it, get the first paying customers. Now I start reaching out to angels and they'll be like, okay, you put your money where your mouth is and invested your own funds to get the paying customers. Now we have a cushion with the money we put in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, amazing advice, and I'm sure you could talk for days on that. I want to move on though to your point number 2, drafting amazing copy, and particularly your LinkedIn superpowers, because I think they really are superpowers. And you mentioned the other day that you had a post and you had 1 million views in 7 days, and then a second post with 2 million views in 24 hours. So I'm sure it's a lot of hard work, but what's the secret of your success, and maybe what framework do you use that we can at least start, going on that journey, generating our mental muscle?
So because I have been in lots of meetings with founders about their funding rounds, the first thing that they tell me is like, okay, we need to raise money ASAP because we have these needs ASAP. And I tell them, and it unconsciously becomes part of my job to say, hey, you will not raise that much money that quickly with this level of traction. Have you looked into ways to save cost and save time instead of like burning yourself in all these time consuming and costly procedures, which are forcing you to look for funding when you don't have time for it? So I always knew about all types of no code and cost saving software that you can use in the early stages, because as an app development industry salesperson, part of my job was to help those customers validate their own ideas before they put all this money to the agency. And I showed them how to validate ideas by making a dummy website, getting signups and showing interest and so on. So my most popular posts are basically any kind of time and money saving hacks. Why so? Because the first thing a founder runs out of when the moment they start a new company is money and time. So anything you can tell them about saving a money time that they can instantly action, that's the formula for a viral post. And people like posts which are instantly actionable and insightful and different from what they've already known, and can start producing relevant results ASAP. So instantly actionable and instantly results delivering. So uh, just if you're any kind of person in the startup space, giving this kind of advice really helps. I've also noticed something that I used to get a lot of attraction on my posts for just publishing either investor lists or email templates. So you must have noticed on LinkedIn, a lot of people will say, want to figure out my secret 5-figure trick to sales success as a freelancer, my secret tip to passive income, subscribe to my newsletter. I'm like, those people do not want to be put into an email marketing funnel. Even if it's possible, they just want you to help them ASAP.
Yeah.
So I don't tease. I start delivering value within the first 4 lines. You see the post, you're instantly seeing something that's relevant and it's going to save your life right now. You open it and you like it and you comment and share it. That was the secret of those 2 posts. Those 2 posts were about immediately actionable things, just like the posts which were about investor templates, just like the posts of investor lists. Just try to make sure that you're from the first line of your post, you are saving someone's life, and it just keeps going on. Simple steps. Do this now and it will work.
Amazing. Yeah, makes sense when you say it. And in terms of the communicating the message, I think you said everyone's attention spans and reading abilities are way down. What's your kind of guideline in terms of formatting?
So you need to have half the screen text free, the other half is text. Make sure that nothing spills over into 2 lines and only occupies half the line each point. This is gonna save you like a lot of stress, then make sure that everything looks like the notes you take in a classroom, so that it, the notes you take in a classroom are just for quickly, easily referring later on. Okay. So that's something. And lastly, what else is important? Uh, don't worry too much if English is not your first language, because the majority of people reading your content online, English is not their first language either. The Anglo-American world is what, 10% of the world's population? I don't know. Like, if you avoid the Shakespearean stuff, just stick to whatever people can digest quickly. And if, in fact, if you're not a native English speaker, even better, because you'll use the simple English that everybody else will understand.
Yeah, good point. And in terms of like, do you have a framework in terms of get attention, stimulate interest, what's in it for me, action closer, or do you write it more of a pyramid style, kind of most value at the top, and then more context as you go down? What's your preferred style?
Okay. First line, the desired outcome you will get if you read this. Okay. And then just bullet points everything down there, a bullet point list of things you can do, and bullet and step-by-step instructions. And then the closer is a summary of what you need to do to get where you want. And then there's a call to conversation. Let me know in the comments what you do. I disagree? Let me know.
Mhm. So we got desired outcome, you will get XYZ if you read this post, the detailed instructions, and then the closer with the call to conversation.
Yeah.
Got it. Great. And I think that that's probably similar with customers. One of the things that you can talk about that if it's not, and the other thing in terms of LinkedIn Sales Navigator and getting lots of LinkedIn leads, that's a way. I think some people have abused it and tuned off a lot of people. What are the best ways to approach leads? Is it via Twitter, phoning them, text, LinkedIn, email?
Okay. So what you need is some kind of a buying signal indicated either via a tool such as Crunchbase or a tool such as Apollo, which is buying signal includes the company's hiring a certain department, or they raise funding, or they recently started putting out certain posts or job ads. That's the first signal. Second step would be that you download the list of leads and you review all their social media for any intent signals. Again, there's a way to do this at scale. A friend of mine, Zan Daniel of ML Sense in the UK, he built a tweet listening tool. So it's very simple. It's just a Google Sheets. We're working with the Python script in the background. The first sheet is input, the Twitter handles of all the prospects. Second, and the second column in the first sheet is keywords that you want to find in there. So then there's a second tab called output, which will show you every tweet that made by those people, which is mentioning those keywords, so that you can prospect those people ASAP. And social selling is the best way to sell. I recently was approached today by a website designer from Philippines. She referenced a LinkedIn post I made where I said, I feel like I am buried in a lot of time explaining what I do. And I told her what I do is fairly self-sufficient. So she had designed a whole website in one evening and said, this is how you can signal your messaging. And I saw this upfront work and I said, hey, you've already done more work and more extensive work than my website design that I paid 2,000 euros to. So I'm gonna tell him, and I did this today, and like, I appreciate the work you've done. Can you just transfer the assets to me? And then I hired her ASAP. Yeah, I don't even feel bad that a salesman worked so well with me. But when somebody identifies your problem from social media and proposes for free the exact solution to it, and just says, if you want to keep learning, just you can pay me, man, you don't have to convince me twice. Here, $1,000 in your pocket.
Wow.
Easiest, yeah, hats off to her. She did amazing salesmanship. I mean,
That's
I never
brilliant.
thought I could ever be convinced by, all those freelancers in those so allegedly cost-saving countries.
Mm,
But she's charging Western prices, and she deserves to because she spent her time understanding a prospect's need and delivering a relevant solution to it.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Honestly, phenomenal.
yeah. And honestly, this was her first time trying that approach.
Oh,
She
wow.
told, yeah, she told me in the call today. And I told her, you've already advanced way beyond all of us in salesmanship, that you have an approach that converts the client ASAP in
Mm.
such a compelling way. It's a compelling offer.
I think helped by the fact that you're so open and so generous and share everything. So yeah, you're probably a pleasure to work with, or you are. I know from firsthand experience. Now, tell me about you're talking about document access and navigation. And one of the things I want to help founders with here is, and you hear it a lot in terms of founder fatigue, fundraising fatigue, burnout. Um,
Zoom fatigue.
yeah, exact Zoom fatigue that's not helping now. Going out for 100 investor meetings, repeating the same thing, finding out that 50% aren't real investors and all that. There must be a better way. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I have discovered that many people are just getting sick and tired of being in Zoom calls all day because your whole world becomes your device screen. That's
Mm,
it. And you're repeating the same information over and over.
mm,
So I have noticed that people in sales are already creating asynchronous processes
mm,
to uh, guide their prospects. So once they get the initial interest, they say, hey, we know you're busy for meetings. I already put all the materials, recorded videos, documents, how-to guides, how to get started, and calendar booking if you need me to actually help you into a single microsite, such as websites such as Value Case, websites such as Journey.io or Trumpet, which just came out of are into beta
mm.
for public use. Um, they allow you to put your users through a journey. And some of us start thinking, why wouldn't this work for investor fundraising? Because I'm sure founders are sick of being in meetings, investors are sick of being in meetings. You can instead just send over, after the first meeting, send over these journeys to the investors. They go through it themselves in their own time. And you only follow up with the investors who have actually diligently read everything.
Yeah, well said. I've seen that work even just with a doc send, pack that comes across, and then some people augment it with a video, a 5-minute video. If you're an investor and you get 12 pictures, you can get through them in an hour, and then you can pick the top two, and you saved all that meeting time, and you'll thank those. You can't invest in everyone, but those ones that did do that, you'll thank them for saving you time, and then you'll have more time to really get into the meat of it and build the relationship. Um,
Mm. Yeah, asynchronous processes help everybody because
mm,
trying to find time from each people's Calendly it was efficient for once, but now it's not even less efficient because Calendly helped me. Our calendars get filled up quickly. We don't even remember what meetings we had last week or who we spoke to. And when someone writes to you saying, following our last discussion, you're like, I'm sorry, which last discussion? Who's this person? So, yeah, just setting things in an asynchronous manner means they just review in their own time and get back to you in their own time.
mm,
And that's making everybody happier. And also, when you put that into some kind of journey, you've spelled things out for people that they don't have to do the thinking themselves.
yeah, true.
Uh, Right. So, yeah, do look into organizing stuff, whether it's in SharePoint or Google Drive or Dropbox or Journey.io or Trumpet,
Mhm.
anything that helps people like spell out for themselves what's happening other than you have to hold their hand for it.
So, is there a danger that if you supply investors with all the material in black and white,
Mhm.
and before they've made a decision in principle, and you really get into the meat of it, and in terms of, let's say, your financial projections, and they say in 12 months' time we'll hit 1 million annually recurring revenue. Now, those
Mhm.
investors hang on to those documents. You come back 12 months time, you didn't manage to raise whatever it might be, and the
Mhm.
investors say, where are you now? And you say, we're still pre-revenue, but in the next 12 months we're going to hit the 1 million ARR. Can you invest now? And they're like, last time you were wrong, you might be wrong again. And they almost, maybe it's a bit harsh, but hold it against you. And it wouldn't, a good investor wouldn't, but it's a data point. How do you
It's a
manage
fair
that?
point. It's a fair point because I know one Singaporean seed investor
Mm.
who have admitted that, look, we know our portfolio company might not always meet expectations and things don't always turn out the right way. So um, they had one portfolio company which pivoted about 5 times in 4 years to a different business model. And when the moment finally came, they got a check from Tiger Global. So that's a solid form of doing business.
Mm.
And, good investors understand that nothing can be predicted, everything is uncertain. What they cannot do is hold predictions against a founder. That's not the way early stage investing works. And if they think like that, they're in the wrong business. This is not infrastructure. This is not like, the public stocks. There's something else.
No, look, I agree. Maybe that's self-selecting in terms of the investors you bring on. So yeah, I mean, and I think, the difference is what, there's this big, inflection point once you're opposite sides of the table, once the investors invested and you're on the same sides of the table, you understand that it's going to be up, down, left, right, sideways, and we're going to pivot and
Mhm.
stuff's going to happen. But you're on the journey together, as opposed to, before the investors put their money in, that they're more judgmental as opposed to supportive.
Mhm. I mean, if you ever find an investor who is being judgmental all the time, that's the wrong investor. Their job is to be your coach. You're Phil Jackson on the NBA team, trying to figure out if you did something wrong, what was the root cause behind it, understanding it, and then, fixing that.
Mm.
But somebody who is like saying, why aren't you getting these results done? That's just a person out for greed. That's not
Mm.
an investor.
Yeah, true. Well said. I think the other thing I wanted to say on that was, I think, in summary, to summarize that bit of the conversation, it's okay to supply projections to investors. And I think one thing it will do is make you think, if I'm doing this, putting it in black and white, I'm going to make sure that they're realistic and achievable, because I am going to have to answer for them, rather than putting in the big, billion-pound hockey stick in there. You're like, no, actually, let me be sensible, and it probably will be wrong, and that's okay. And the right investors will respect it and respect the journey.
Yeah, that's it. Like, but that's why you got to be careful about who you pick as an investor. Like, you got to do your own due diligence and ask their own portfolio companies what was it like to work with this guy.
Mhm.
And and sometimes you do find some concerning tales. Like, this one guy in Montreal, he got a very weird term sheet from somebody who wanted 100K for 20% and the right to have a board seat, and and be the preferred advisor for the next fundraising round. But they also wanted the right to get their money back if things did not work out properly.
Mm.
Um, so uh, I told them, why don't you ask his other investees? And they reported that the guy was a nightmare to work with. So this founder in Montreal dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. No, well said. And I think that the lid has been lifted on both venture, angels, venture capital, private equity. The lid is off. No one, they can't hide behind closed doors anymore. So you quickly find out who's, the right people to work with and who's not. And
Yeah.
mm,
Mhm.
great. Okay, I'm gonna bring that to a close, and go back and summarize what you've said. And then I'll come back to you and just see if you've got any concluding thoughts. So going back to the top, excuse me, I just want to turn on TikTok. I've got a new, I'm also recording the summaries on TikTok. So from the start, Prateek Sanjay, Number one, researching and finding customer or investor names. So Prateek said you need to find a process of finding out the financial stability of each customer or investor. And in terms of customers, find customers' willingness and ability to pay. What have they raised and what are they using the money for? In terms of investors, what have they done before? What are their convictions? And go out there with a really precise sniper rifle, not just any rifle, definitely not the shotgun. Leave that at home. Be very targeted, do your research. When you approach investors, specify the relevance of your offering in the first two lines. Also, be wary of niche sectors. You might not have a lot of prospects in there, and that is a bad thing as opposed to a niche product. Big difference there. First impressions really do count, so make sure you don't reach out too early, or if you do want to reach out, start building the relationship and truly build the relationship as opposed to just pretending. And remember, with fundraising, start early. Always start early. Build your contact list up at least 12 months before you actually need to go out and raise cash. In terms of drafting amazing copy, here we have the master Prateek with his 2 million views in 24 hours. Incredible. And he said the most popular posts are the ones that save people time and money, particularly founders, but that's probably pretty universal. Create posts that are instantly actionable, insightful, and deliver instant results. So ASAP. And remember to deliver value in the first 4 lines. Don't wait till further down in the post. In terms of a format, write at least half of the page, single lines, and they should look like classroom notes, some things that you can just take down quickly and of course read quickly. And in terms of a format, number one, start with the desired outcome you will get from reading this post, the instructions about what to do, and a closer with a call to conversation. And finally, when researching those prospects, look for buying signals. Look across social media sites. There are social listening tools, and by far, social selling is the best way to sell. So not email, not text, not phone. Finally, on to number 3. I guess, in terms of document navigation and access, everyone's aware of meeting fatigue, Zoom fatigue. There is a better way. It's asynchronous communication. You can prepare everything, investor notes, even if it could be for customers, video blogs, journals, whatever it might be. Give everyone the information up front and then engage with the investors who engage with that material. It's really that simple. You'll be doing them a favor and yourself a favor. So thanks very much, Prateek. What else do you want to add to that?
Great summary. I loved it. You're a master of note taking. I love it.
Well, you've delivered
Wow, it
some
was a
huge
pleasure to
value.
be here. I enjoyed it.
Superb. Now, tell me, Prateek, you spoke a little bit about your services, but if we want to get in touch with you to engage with you, your services, just follow your posts, how do we go about doing that?
Well, on my LinkedIn page, there's a link called Book a Phone Call. That's the best way to get in touch with me and get a hold of me, because when you book it, you get my phone number and you can call there on via WhatsApp or Signal or whatever. Why? Because I might not notice your DM on LinkedIn, because there's a lot of DMs happening in LinkedIn. Some people just write hi, and that just creates a whole more burden of digging up the relevant messages and not relevant ones. And some people just ask for life advice, which you're not sure about answering because you don't want to offend them by giving the wrong advice, or you want to completely ignore them. So they're thinking like, okay, how do I answer this person right now who's struggling with their life, right? But yeah, actually, it's very common. I don't know if you've experienced people asking for life advice in your DMs.
People that I know from past, but not cold. You obviously have a big following.
Yeah, because I seem so approachable that people
Mm.
really over trust me with some really private details.
Great. Okay. Super. Thanks, Prateek. So it's Prateek Sanjay on LinkedIn. I'll include the link in the write-up, and hopefully a couple of links as well that can save you a bit of time. But I really do encourage you to follow Prateek, and thanks again for being on the show.
Thank
Absolute
you so
pleasure as well.
much. A pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you. That's all for this episode. Keep tuning in for more exclusive insights from seasoned investors, accomplished entrepreneurs, and professional service advisors. Follow the Tippy Top blog on all major social media platforms, including Twitter, TikTok, Insta, Facebook, or now Meta, LinkedIn, and of course, you can find me, Alexander Lee, on LinkedIn, and you can also check out my website, thetippytop.com. Until next time, keep pushing, and I'll see you at the Tippy Top.